Hello traders, this is Alex with the Matrix program, giving you a little update on the commodity matrix. It is Memorial Day, happy Memorial Day, especially to the veterans, which is May 25th, Monday. It's about 3 in the afternoon. The Globex sessions will be opening up here in a few hours on the futures. This is my X account, Twitter account, CBOTman is my handle. I have not put the update that I'll be giving here. I will here after this video, but this is where I keep track of stuff so you can go back and reference. I put some stock stuff, kind of GAN related-ish. Try to keep politics out of it. Let's go now to the actual matrix chart. I have kept track of the closes on the matrix chart. It's not real accurate because I just do it whenever I update this video typically. But I do save them kind of as an index. Looks like the last time we've been down here as a total value was last month, so we're kind of on the monthly lows, at least what I have. So kind of interesting, right? We'll see how the next few days, this week actually closes up, since Memorial Day seems a little early to me. And typically the weather heats up and different things for the grains and other things at the end of May, going into June. Okay, let's get into the corn. You can see it just kind of still a dud. We're in that square of the range, finished it, right, since this fell on the weekend. The next zone is May 31st, which is a Sunday, so we're still on the weekends. So right now it's kind of like a weekly chart until we break out of that pattern. But we are squaring it out of this range. So, and it didn't fall apart. Had a weird outside period, and just kind of a neutral close, right? So if you're a buyer only, you might be tempted to buy it if it doesn't gap substantially higher or something. The gap's lower, as long as it don't gap through the stop area. Might be tempted to buy that with a low risk stop underneath this area, or maybe one tick below, maybe down here, which is 246-ish, quarter, 246 and a quarter. Here's the beans. Just a chopper. They don't know what to do. We have not got stopped out, so we're still in that position. We bought it on January 28th. Artificially started on January 1st, December 31st, right? So was sold it right here because that was the trend, and then got stopped. So it wasn't a big loss, but most of these charts have that built in, a big loss, because we just artificially picked a date. But so anyway, this is officially our second trade. I do keep track of them, not part of the program, but there was the short, lost $1,500. Let's move to the wheat. This one has a nice trender. As a trader goes, I like to see some swings, right? I don't know, what do you want to say? It has a better construction of the chart. You build a house on a small foundation. This foundation is leaning on the get-go, right, with the bear trap. So, at some point in time, I'll be looking for a bull trap. But obviously, we haven't had any long enough swings, to construct that. Our stop did get moved up. We're still at a loss. Again, wheat's a toughie to be really bully into the harvest. I did drive the other, 2 weeks ago, I went to a wedding in Colorado. So I got through western Kansas. I'm in Salina. Pukey out there. Those poor bastards aren't going to get nothing. Maybe 20 bushel if they're lucky. It'll probably be lightweight and fluffy. So really not even good for feed. Now I went to Springfield, then to Arkansas, Eureka Springs area. Man, what a difference rain makes. Their wheat looks very good. Everything looks great down there. Rained every day we're there. So it's like just a perfect atmosphere to grow stuff. Corn was probably knee high already. So it just looks really good. Of course, moisture sure helps. We came back home after being down there for 5 days, and I was sweating every day down there. I get up here, it's a drought, right? So it's like no humidity, or less humidity, I shouldn't say no. All right, so anyway, pretty typical wheat. I'm always a little suspect. When you pop new highs, I'd be buying a short-term put as a little protection into the harvest mode. Now again, as if you listen to my other video, you typically, in my 4 decades of trading the grains, you buy the wheat about halfway through harvest. So you keep track of the harvest, soft, hard, whatever, and you wait for that halfway through harvest. It could be the worst drought in history of mankind. The crop tours could have sucked again. Since I'm not involved, I don't really keep track of that. I guarantee you that's going to be a mixed bag. And then the bears always go, well, the global market it's a U.S. futures market. This is not China market. This is U.S. So again, that's all bullshit. They're just trying to pump it up. To again. When it's criminally held down, I mean, there's got to be excuses, right? It can't just because China's controlling everything. So anyway, but that's kind of the always adage, right? Halfway through harvest, filter out the bullshit. There might, again, I always figure, the big states that harvest a lot of wheat, or if you're looking at corn, or if you're looking at beans, the big states, it's the surrounding little states that make the difference of either being a big bull or a big bear, or I shouldn't say bull. It should be a crappy, under average or above average yields, right? So, and Kansas is a big dog, and we've sucked, I think. Here's the meal. we chopped up, didn't make a new high, kind of back into the range. This was the squaring of that range, and it did nothing. I guess it's over one right here. This squaring of the range popped back up. So again, it's kind of acting a little friendly that it couldn't break, right? It should have broke, down in here and made another low on this swinger. It did not. So I'm kind of friendly that this is all the break that we could get into its bearish time frame. Let's go to coffee. Again, we talked about new lows. Again, we are short. Um, this was one of them that we did a few weeks ago. Still at a loss, but it's just acting weak. You can see solar high, midpoint was nothingness, kind of a little break. The next solar eclipse was another low, and this is our midpoint here. It's just, again, got to be a little careful, right? But the solar eclipse here and the midpoint here is kind of pointing to me maybe just a sideways chop or, again, continuation of this downward pattern. Always got to be careful of coffee because you can have one of those wild rides. I would say if you can buy, if you're short, buy some out of the money calls, maybe up in here, or up even out of the money calls here, maybe a couple. If you have one short futures, buy a couple calls, maybe a couple 3 months out. No big deal, right? Don't spend a lot of money. You're just using it as insurance because again, these things can really fly if it really wants to. Now, right now, it's in kind of a dead mode. I think a lot of people bitch about margins. I believe the way it's trading here, margins might be a little high. Here's the cotton. This was a trade that we did. Again, we talked about this bull. One of the biggest bulls we had. I guess you call it a ag commodity, right? Cotton. Some people call it a soft. Um, but you can see we got really have again. That's to me that means where you put your stop, right? I mean, if you're actually personally traded with cash, I would have been more tight on it. Big bull halfway. Again, this was our projection zone, right? Halfway from the solar eclipse to the next solar eclipse, or 90 degrees. This is 180, right? This is where Gann would have projected a bull market high based on whatever, right? And it did project it, and we did have a bull run. Here was the solar eclipse right here, right? Now, he wouldn't have bought it here. He waited for the trend to change. He would have probably bought it here, or maybe waited for the swing to change, and then he would have put the wood to it, got out on his, he might have had a number projected, and then stay out, right? You don't buy the next dip, that kind of thing. Anyway, we got stopped out here. Let me see. It was a little, $5 grand trade, no big whoop. But profit nonetheless, and that's kind of nice to see a trend because most of these markets have been a slap joint sideways action, right? Chippity choppity. Here is the sugar, one that I really liked. We looked at the options. We doubled our money if you would have taken that advice, and still have half your positions left, that kind of thing. So just an inside event. Now again, you do a little work, right? This was 7 boxes or bars, and here's 7 here, right? So uh, I wouldn't like it if it starts getting down in here, right? That would tell me that something's different, and maybe we are going to do what I thought we were doing originally, is take out this low and make a new swing low. Now let me see. That's 15 boxes over, right? Let me get this to here is 15 from to this box. So in 15 over to here, getting a little cycle work, logical stuff is right here. So this next week, again, I don't like stops into those. I'd be switching those over to options if I was long, like the system is, and just for 2 weeks, right? And then you can switch it back over, get through this basically time frame, right? The cycle of the low to low to the next possible low. And again, it could get hammered, right? It could get, it's proven that it's wild, right? Here's 7 boxes up. It took 30 boxes up, 29 rounding, and there's 7 boxes of time. So, and it's proven that can do that. So you got to assume it could go pretty quick. The biggest, again, something I'm just kind of get off track here, but these 2 boxes here were about 19, right? So from this high, go 2 boxes over, go down 19. So yeah, I could get down here, and I think if I got here, it'd probably make new lows. So I could see it where it could do that and get everybody squarely stopped out. People that don't use a little logic, right? Now, of course, it could get really hammered, but then you'd have to run this line down here, right? And I'm just kind of guessing it'd be right around here. I don't want to do it now because not even close to that. But that kind of thing, right? Makes sense. If you're a buyer only and you're looking for spots, that's the kind of shit I do. Here's the juice. Now I like selling it more than buying it, but everybody has their own flavor. That's the nice thing about futures and margins, right? You can buy and sell. Orange juice, we did pop a new low, which is logical, and there's still could go down to get this one, just a chopper, but the value is quite big for orange juice, even though it's a small contract. These are still, even though we've dropped, I don't know what it is, a lot. We've 600 down to bucks, 100 something, so it's dropped a lot. But it used to be way cheaper than that. But everybody drinks orange juice, drinks coffee. It's not a commodity that evaporates in the ether like some things do. Now this is the crude. We're still long. Our stop got moved up to here, or maybe that's where it was at. Let me see. I wrote a note here. Okay, well I'll look at that in the daily. But you can see we did pop a new high in the July contract. Just so you know, I'm trading July. I'm not trading the spot. That the month of July is represented by the letter N in the commodity world. Um, and we are in the month of May right now, which is K, which I don't trade. I'll switch over once we get to the first week of June or so. I'll switch over to the December contract, which is a Z. So that's why I put these letters here. Now, of course, C means close of that bar, right? The close of that moon period. Now, again, solar eclipse close was the beginning of WD Gann's projections, where you'd start projecting a bull market. And this is the area, of time. Price, I don't know, depending on what he was using, right? So, but again, he would have been applying it, maybe being a little strategic, and maybe got stopped out if he was using a 2-day, and he stays out, right? You don't come in and buy it right away. Oh God, I missed it. Geez, you find you have another alternative market to trade, or stock, or whatever, right? Here's the NatGas. We talked about market making new lows. It did. It's a pooch dog with fleas. Our stop needs to get moved down one more bar. But same price, still profitable a little bit. But again, NatGas is just a pooch in this time of year. Tricky. Every once in a while it gets a weird ass pop, but logically over 25 years, if you would stay, or if you're buyer only, you stay out of NatGas till about, I don't know, maybe September, October-ish. You start watching it for those dips and buy that kind of thing, right? Because then you're into the future of the cold weather projection period, right? Of course, they do have a lot of stock websites now you can bet on weather a little more accurately than what, I don't know, whatever I know they're bitching about the military people betting on wars and campaigns because they got inside information, and they're prosecuting the freaking guys for being over there for betting on the war. Well, because they know, right? Well, that's insider trade. Jesus, freaking Cargill gets caught all the time for insider trading and fixing the markets. They don't get thrown in jail. They don't get fined. I mean, come on. Stupid. Of course they got inside information. They're getting their fucking arm blown off. Just leave them alone. Anyway, this is the faster chart, a 1-to-1 speed, right? So it's one box, a true, and this one is a 2-buy. That's why I have two different ones. I actually take the official stop on this one, which has been the same, because it's faster, right? And I want to have less risk. Now, of course, you have less profit too if you get spun, but it hasn't been that case so far. Here's the E-mini S&P, another new high. The stops got moved up a little. We're long from down here, so we got a little profit locked in. Keeps poking new highs. Not much to say, except for the zone, right? You got to be a little cautious. And I would prefer to have my stops probably maybe down in here somewhere. Makes more sense than down here. Or, right, if you know how to use options, you buy a put, you cancel the stop order and buy maybe 2-week out or maybe 3-week out put to get through this zone. Maybe 3 weeks makes more sense. Get an option that covers maybe June 8th. I don't know what it'd be. Let me see. June 8th, it will be a Monday. So that'll end the weekly kind of looking at this. It'll be more than a different chart. And that's why I like to use these moon. Again, a little different look, right, than a weekly. Your chart programs. Maybe I can create a chart program for me someday that I don't have to do this manually. But so far I got to kind of do it manually because they're not that smart yet. At least as far as I know. But anyway, it stops here. Pretty good trade. Not much to say. Support longer term is the old highs. If it's really bullish, I'm guessing it'll get to here somewhere. And if it's a little more bearish break, it'll get down below this high somewhere down here. Very rarely do you stop right at the old highs. That's too obvious, right? So again, depending on the fundamentals that you're aware of, or somebody you read, right, tells you that it's more bullish or bearish or whatever. That's where I would be buying the longer term breaks if you're a buyer only. And if you're short up here and happen to pick something, of course you're probably a more bear. You'd be one that be looking at some level down here, or buy calls against your shorts that you picked up here. Now again, I have a hard time picking this market because it is a bull, right? It's trading like it's undervalued. So I'm not a big fan. Now if I had to sell it, I wouldn't use futures. I would buy puts. Let's say you're worried about some economic news, something, right? You buy puts, don't sell futures. Gives you more bang for your buck and keeps your the risk money in your pocket. Here's the euro. We thought this pivot would be in something, right? Again, let's do a little cycle work. Here is 13 boxes over, or 13 moon periods. And this is 13, right? So it truly is a dud. It's back into the chop. This whole rally here, just a dud. Should have been more or less. So now again, we got a new kind of swings developing. It's 7, and of course we're already beyond that too. But so a little quicker time frame. This is 7 here. So that's June 21st, which will probably be the week, something during the week. Let me see. That is a Sunday. So we kind of revert back a little bit. So again, the Friday close in here will be pretty key. You start maybe even the week before, you start flipping on the tradable whatever you like time frame, 60-minute, 120-minute charts or something, right? Here is gold, still a weak stick. We're still short. Again, as long as it stays less volatile, the margins then become now. I mean, I was bitching like that the margins weren't high enough through here. Oh, everybody's bitching the margins. Hell, it's moving more than the freaking one day. Then you add your margin. You can't as a ex-broker, man. That scares the holy bejesus, and I wouldn't let people do it. I'd say, nah, you're not trading gold on 12 grand. You're gonna have to put 40 grand in trade one futures. They go, what? I go, I don't want you to blow up. The worst thing that can happen in a trading market that's really good in particular is not having enough money and you trade stupid. No different than gambling, right? You can't gamble on a little money. You got to have enough money to make it right, to play the down draws and the updrafts. So same thing in this deal. You got to have enough money. I think you have to trade smaller increments if you don't, right? Micros, which is I believe, 100th of the size. So anyway, the stop still the same price. Nothing to really report there. Let's move on. The next one is the silver. Uh, kind of had that pop and fade right into this time zone, right, which is the Cardinal Cross. So we're still long though. So again, for spreaders, a lot of people have been preaching gold, silver was out of whack, So now again, you got to remember that's a spread right between the two prices. So if you're going to trade or think like that, because what's going to happen is they'll both drop a lot and silver will drop more. I mean, that's kind of how they stand. No different than corn, beans, right? Beans are always the king. Gold is always the king. Beans are the king. What happens is the only time you make money is when they both go down and beans go down a little bit more, right? That's the same thing that's going to happen here if the spread narrows or widens is the movement or the bull market that we're seeing, right? Again, the spread got narrowed when the silver went up more, right? Because there's a faster moving individual market, but gold's more of a generic. So again, the spreads are pretty key. I like trading spreads, but you got to understand it is a spread. It isn't an outright futures per se. And margins are extremely high, I got to assume. I don't know what they are. I don't know how they even calculate them. You got 30, 60 grand at one time on silver, 36 on gold at the highs. I don't know how they would break that down. Maybe nothing. It might be 100 grand to trade one gold silver spread, right? So, or silver gold. But anyway, the stops here. We're kind of back along the parallel. We did have a higher close, FYI, for the bulls. And be a little cautious if you're a bear. The trend short term did go down because we had 2 boxes below the previous. So again, this up here, that's the short term trend and now is down. We are still long though, so right here, but we are coming in to this faster squaring of the range, which I believe is a 2x1 speed, right? So 2 boxes of price versus 1 box at a time. I know the last video I screwed those up. You get my point, right? It's 2x1 speed. This is a 1x1. This would be a 1x2 out here somewhere. Anyway, this is kind of the zone. We're squaring out of that range. So, and we're also, this is the previous solar eclipse, which we'll look at in the daily. And we did come back and hit it again. So I'm always a little bullish above the solar eclipse and a little bearish below the solar eclipse if it's on a close. But right now that's support. Again, here was the solar, right? Here's halfway. Not much, and we're back. So to me, what is the trend? If you had to pull a gun to my head, I'd say the trend is sideways, at least so far, halfway in between. There's no direction, right? So, and you can see it. It didn't go anywhere. Make a new low, pops back in the range. I'm guessing if it makes a new high, pops back in the range. Now I'm looking at this bear trap, licking my chops, but shit, it might have happened here already, right? We already popped this out. This it doesn't seem like much, but these are 50% swings, by the way, for the percentage people. So maybe that was the counter. For every action is equal, but counter. Every action is equal but opposite action. Equal but opposite. The Newton's law. I like that law. The only thing I really like about Newton. But that law makes sense in the trading world. If you have a big flat top, you have a big fat bottom. Flat, excuse me, not fat. If you have sharp tops, you tend to have sharp bottoms. If you have bear traps, you tend to have bull traps for highs. So again, I was hoping it would have more than that, but it's turning out to be a dud. And we'll get into a little bit of that here in a second. Here's the cattle. Pop new highs and D's. Had a terrible close. This is one that the system went short a couple days ago. And let me see. Yeah, been losing money in the cattle except for the first trade. Of course, again, that was a fictitious beginning trade. Now let's move on. Here's Bitcoin. Kind of acting a little poochy, but the close was pretty good, really. I mean, the stop hasn't got hit. We're still long. The solar eclipse is down here for a better of a break, right? Kind of halfway in between that and the spot low. Again, this H is March and this M is June. So the March lows were here. You got to assume if you could trade options, it'd be nice to buy puts down here against any longs, that kind of thing. I don't know if you can or not, to be honest with you. Solar eclipse is kind of right in between there, right? So it makes sense a little bit that we could see sideways action. But solar eclipse low, right here, and this halfway point is a high, right in here. So be a little cautious being a bull just willy-nilly. Anyway, all right, let me get the daily charts up on bar chart. I'll be right back. Here it is. Okay, here we go. Bar count. Okay, what percentage? Yeah, we're 61 days. The previous video I did talked about the matrix, right, ending, and that'll be officially on a daily, right? Not on that other chart because that was a monthly or a moon period, right? So it officially ended on Thursday, the 21st. 21st. Yeah, that was on Thursday. It officially ended at 66 market days. That is Gann's 90 degrees on a Gann wheel, that kind of thing, right? I use market days. I like 11, 22, 33, 66. It's mathematical. It makes sense on a bar chart, not a calendar day chart, but a bar chart. So anyway, that was Gann's projection point. Now you can do it from this low as well. Now that's how so if I forget and I go through these charts, keep an eye on the previous day's close, which was Thursday. This was Friday. So keep track of that. And if I forget to mention it when we go through these charts and I get sidetracked on 10 different ways. Okay, here's corn. Again, solar eclipse down here, just a dud. I mean, I don't know if it made a new high on the March 9th. Oh shit, I didn't want the date. 487 and a half, 47 and a half. Exact double top. Kind of always think that is suspicious. But this is the previous solar eclipse, not the current one. This is the green one's the current one. This little arch. This was the one from 6, 7, 8 months ago. And again, offered support, right? This would be a longer term support. A great area if we have a bear trap, right, where it makes a new low and then immediately spins, kind of thing. That's why I like to lick my chops against, especially when you have some alternate support area like the solar eclipse or a retracement, 50%, 30%, 33, 66, whatever, right? Whatever your flavor is. My flavor is a solar eclipse close. Nothing to report there. Let's go to the beans. That's a dead horse. Wheat made a new high. The previous moon period, a secondary event, this one. So basically this was the low in the previous moon period that we were trading. This last one is basically an inside moon period bar right there on the chart. So just a dud, but it's an uptrending dud. These tend to turn into bigger bulls. We know there's dry weather out there, even though use your caution. Now maybe harvest will be early this year than normal because the wheat was really ripe, even in the good looking areas. So I don't know how that can be, but it is. So I'm guessing next week there'll be some harvesting going on. It was paper sack brown out there. But again, Arkansas looked good. Colorado, Kansas looked bad. So, and then somewhere in between is probably average, right? So here's the meal again, just a chopper, but an uptrending chopper. Let me squish it down a little bit. See, here's our previous high, true double top. This has got to get going for beans to go up another step. If it's just bean oil, it doesn't work that way. Here is the coffee. Again, we talked about new lows. It did. Now, if you're wanting a quick sell, is up against a solar eclipse, maybe a pop above this high and a lower close into this kind of thing makes sense. Also, these old two lows become resistance, right, on the next pop. So it makes sense it could do that. It's acting not like it's undervalued, right? It's acting like it's overvalued. These little puny flag patterns are sells, really? Okay. The new lows in particular, that tells you to be a little cautious. And I don't know anything about fundamentals in coffee, except for I like certain brands. And basically, again, we're just trading within this big old bull pattern from back here to here. Let me see, which was 75 days long, and the faster first part was 47. So it can fly. Here is 66. Let's check out the percentage. So that went up about 47% in 40 some days. So it's pretty fast popper, but typical for coffee. That ain't unusual. That's actually pretty slow. So this downtrend, it's correcting. This is the money swing, I call it, or money bar. Until we get through that, you don't know the direction of the market. Here is cotton, the bull. The bulls turned bear. We did sell it Thursday or whatever, right on the zone. So yeah, the tendency on bulls is it goes all the way back to the level it came from. So I'm anticipating a pretty good smash. Now this isn't a monster bull, right? It's just a standard bull. A monster bull, not like we just had in the silver. This is just a normal, like let's call it a 2x1 bull, where silver is like an 8x1 bull. Big difference, right? I don't think margins even changed in cotton on that bull. So that's maybe another criteria, right, for a super bull. Here's the sugar. One I like. It's just caught in the middle now. I think I'm still kind of friendly at that swing, and our option trade is still valid. But I'm glad if you did take that, I'm glad you got out of those because it's just acting again a coil, right? Maybe we'll have. My thought now is that we'll have another exact leg, right? Oops, excuse me. Damn it. Yeah, that was right. We'll have another exact leg as this one. That was 12 days, market days, bars, 15%. And we'll have another one kind of similar, which would take out I don't know where to put it. Let's just put it on this bar. Say this is a low here today because this is the timing. This is 66 market days. We'll put it right there on that time, and we'll put it up based on this price. So again, as a forecast goes, this is where I'd project this market on June 8th at 1779.80, 1770-ish, right? Now, if you do percentages, you could go up a little more to match the 14%, right? But this is fine. Keep it under the 18 public number. Makes a little sense. Pop out this area. So anyway, that's a simple forecast, right? That's tradable. It's not out of the realm. It's not something crazy like people talking $800 silver crazy, right? This is all within the realm. Here is orange juice. Let me switch to the spot daily nearby. Again, it took out this set of lows. Couldn't take out this one, so it popped. Again, well, enough. Why move on? I don't think we can trade orange juice anyway with the shit. It's high margin, high maintenance, and scary as hell. New highs though in the contract in July where the spot is not. I was thinking anyway, so that's a big deal. I'm gonna, right, because if you're trading July only, don't even look at the spot. You wouldn't even know that it's an inside coil, right, or whatever pattern you want to call it. Here you're making new highs. Potential trap, right? We had a trap here. We may have a trap here, right? But you wouldn't have seen that just looking at a spot chart. You have to. Now I'm going to pull up December, which is my favorite. This is going to screw everything up, but let's pull up CLDs 26. Full chart. Dees also made a new high. Let's do one more just to really bog things down. Let's go out a few years on Dees 28. There's some reasons why I'm doing this. This is what I normally do. All right, so it made a new high a little before, but the high was 72.06, right? Market's kind of projecting prices for you. That's the all-time high, 72, right? So now let's go back to the watch list. Let's go, remember those charts in the back of your mind. Let's go to the flip charts. Let's go to the crude. There's the crude and the July chart, right? So the DESA 28 showing a high of 72, new all-time high for that contract. Again, a few years out, was $72. So here we're trading at 99, right? So it's telling you that the future is down on the contracts. Now it doesn't mean it's bearish, right? Again, this is the money swing. We've just barely messed around on the outside of the money swing on that side. We go down and mess around on the outside of the money swing down here, right? So again, I've talked about the two solar eclipses here. Point being is you got to look at the charts. This one's making new highs. The spot is not. It's just a coil, right? So it gave you a different look. Where it's inside the money bar there, which that low day was March 10th. Let me go back. Daily. March 10th. Oh yeah, right here, duh. So we're kind of a long ways away here, right? So again, the July is showing a different view, and just so you understand it, right? Now again, to me, I like bear traps, so I'd be looking. I want to sell crude, right? I'm not a big fan of being a bull crude on weird news. I would prefer to buy puts, weekly options. I'm a time trader, right? And I know I had time in here. We had 66 market days from the solar eclipse. We had the halfway point, on the spot, the matrix chart, which again is 66 market days. So I was watching for a high in here, and I needed another reason to back up my theory, and we had a trap. So hence, I'm a little more aggressive than I would have been, maybe even futures, right? That kind of thing, or mini, or if I don't have the money, right, 12 grand margin still appropriate. So I would have definitely been looking at this a little more closely to be a seller, or definitely if I had long positions, I would have bought full set of puts against them, maybe even a few extra puts to be a little bearish and didn't get out of them. Here's the NatGas, talked about new lows. It's just a dud. Now again, this is the Gann 90-degree Gann period, the matrix I call it zone. I wouldn't want to sell it anymore, right? If you were short, I'd be getting out, staying flat. Maybe I don't know if I'd go long yet, but definitely profit zone. Get out. Let somebody else have the trade. Don't be too greedy. If you become a pig, they do get slaughtered. Here is the S&P, another one I'd be watching, and it did have a trap on Friday. So this one gets my interest as well. I don't know if I just take it, but I might be mine. Again, if I was long, like we are in our matrix, I would definitely be taking profits, or protection, right? With puts, again, a couple weeks out, don't have to be a long term, don't have to spend a lot of money on time, right? But this will protect you. And again, I don't like doing it just on the matrix, but I got to find something that goes along with it. Now, sometimes you find 3 or 4 things that gel up, maybe some squaring of time, maybe the range, my master chart range, and that kind of things, calculators that I have. Those come into play when you're looking for something and you need a little mental backup, right? Makes you more confident. Nothing worse than being uncomfortable. Kind of feels like you're guessing. I hate guessing. That's not how you make money. But if you can if you can take away that there's a good possibility, a percentage, right? Because you got 5 or 6 things in an area. You'd like to take that to Vegas because you'd be a zillionaire if you could do that out of Vegas, but you can't, right? You're working with 1% either side of 50% to be making it out of there with your skin. All right, so this is the euro, just kind of a chippeter choppeter. Let's go on. We'll be rolling. By the way, let me flip back. I'll probably be rolling. This is June, so we'll be rolling into September, probably the first week of June somewhere. I haven't looked at the calendar, but that's kind of usually how I do it. And I also do the S&P then as well. Both those will go into September. Here's the D's. I've already rolled that because I like trading December. There's plenty of volume. You can see that this market is just it's losing its edge a little. Let's just run a quick little time zone, see where we're at. I'll just do it. Let me see if I can. I'm going to do it so it matches up a little bit. Okay, I don't have to be precise, but there is 40. Let's go right in there, close enough. All right, so there is from high to that low, 38 bars, right, on a daily. And this will be a doubling of that. I'm trying to pick so it makes sense a little bit. Just understanding that this won't be exact, right, with this low. Normally it can be, but I like to match it up so it looks appropriate on the chart. So there's 238 cycles of that. So basically you can see, now again it was more like 36, right? But close enough, right? That's just this. You don't know what's more important, this low or the secondary event. I like the secondaries personally. A lot of times the pivots make more sense. There was 3 important dates in this low, actual low, which is the 23rd, this pivot high, which is 25th. Now this is fast, but it is gold, right? We had a fast move. Normally you get more than a 1-dayer, but this is the 26th. So this is the pivot whole sequence that all 3 of these dates are important to me. So all this makes sense. Anyway, you can see now though that this completed that. This is also the metric zone. It doesn't take me much to get bullish. Uh, Again, but I can't trade it. I mean, the margins are too high. Options then become too high. Everything becomes too high. It's out of my price zone. I'm not going to go down and buy a bar of freaking gold just because I think it's low. I mean, it costs me more gas to get to a pawn shop than I think it's worth. But if you've got the coin to trade it. This is not a bad area, right? This whole little bot. I know it's minor, but you need to start making some new highs or wait for my system on the matrix, which will be up here to go long. This is the previous solar eclipse, so you got to be a little careful there. Here's silver. I'm going to move this chart out of here so you can, because it's kind of making the chart look stupid. But I'm going to get this out of there so you can kind of see, that's the big money swing, and it kind of screws up my chart. These are 50% rallies, right? So they're not dirt cheap. So it's still important. Now, again, it doesn't look like much on this chart because, these are big days. Let me see. This day here was just a mere $7. That's all. This one was probably 7 or 8, $10. So pretty big swings. It doesn't look like much, but it's all relative. You can trade futures on. They got micros, 100th, and then they got minis, which are a 5th. Now they used to. I'm assuming they still do. And the big one is 5,000 ounce, right? So you got 5,000 ounce contract. You got 1,000 ounce contract, which you can take delivery on, or make delivery. And then you can do the micros, which I do not think are deliverable. That's 100th ounce size, or 100 percentage size. It's the small one, micro. Now that you can trade that. If you don't want to trade, if you don't have a account set up with a brokerage firm, you can trade it on your. I don't think Robinhood, no, but Coinbase, you can trade futures there, but it is the micro, so it's not the big one. And there's no deliveries in that, so you don't have to worry about going on vacation. Oh shit, I forgot to get out of my silver. I'm gonna have to come up with a lot of money deal. Here is the cattle, one of our trades. We actually sold it on this day right here, and you can see why, right? Our stop was in here from back here actually, right? And then we finally got stopped out here. So this high looks a little appropriate. This is December contract. The previous time we made a low was in November 25th. This previous high was on October. Again, it just couldn't get going, and new highs made me suspect. Let's look at it on a spot though, just to see what it looks like. Kind of a similar deal, new highs. Now, I wish I could, my old program, which I don't, Ensign, I used to have Ensign software, you could actually plug in just April, like a continuation of just April. And not the spot. I guarantee you, April was way higher than this. So anyway, here and there. Now this is last but not least. It's Bitcoin. Now this is a nearby spot, and we'll flip it back again. You can see, just God, let me get the one that we're actually trading, the June one. Now I won't roll the June on that one until probably the middle of June. Maybe I'll roll it. Doesn't really matter when it ain't moving, right? I'd rather get it rolled than not rolled. So. Yeah, you can see this whole thing's just dud. Let me go back spot. Let's actually go like a monthly one, see what it looks like on a nearby monthly, spot monthly. Yeah, again, like I've mentioned before, in the new era, right, which is to me 2018 on, a year break, it was the longest break we had. This was November of 2021. This was November of 2022. So this high is important, right? I'm going to actually go to this first one because that'll be more to me, right? You always got to kind of look out, be careful. That kind of anyway. It's July, so we got a few more months to kind of pave through before I'll get kind of excited that we're getting into the longer term cycle. Now again, the actual was October, so we've got a ways to go for October before you really get excited. Because again, these add, increases your percentage. Not saying we can't break the 1 year low, right? But typical breaks don't last that long. So far, Bitcoin. Now again, this is a futures contract, not the actual Bitcoin. All right, I'm going to sign off again. Everyone have a great rest of your trading. Again, we're kind of at a holiday period, which is a trend change in itself. July 4th, New Year's, all those time periods to me are natural changes of trend, right? Now this one's a little early, but normally it's more the last few days of that. So, and we've had some weird weather, right? Here in Kansas, we've had hail, drought, floods. I mean, fires. I mean, there's been everything you could pick from. So, if my garden can make it this year, I think I should keep all the seeds because this has been a wild freaking year. And same way with farming, right? These guys have really had struggles, and some areas look really great, but we'll see. I mean, that's the hassle of farming. And nowadays, since there's so many betting tools out there, you can bet on weather, you can bet on tornadoes, you can bet on fires, and you can bet on politics. So they're pumping up the news a little more. We've had a lot of this stuff over the years, but these betting sites are, people are wanting that news, right? Give me more on the weather because I'm betting on the weather. So they're requesting it, they're giving it, and they're making people frothy a little more than they should be. This is tornado season. We expect hail, wind, damage. No big deal normally, but when I first moved to Kansas 30 years ago, it was like a tornado warning went off, siren went off every 3-4 days. I haven't heard the tornado siren but once in 3 years here now, right? But again, the news is really pumping things up, so which is good and bad. All right, I'm going to sign off. Everyone have again, I won't probably report back unless something crazy happens. I mean, we only had a few trades in a week or 2 weeks since I last traded it. It was the cattle and something else, right? No big whoop. So I probably, unless something really gets wild, I probably will be a couple more weeks down the road. I am putting out some stuff. I had tools, right? Excel master chart and squaring the range calculators. I kind of closed my website, and I am going to get those available again. I've had a lot of requests. I won't make much on them, but it's a nice tool. I use them all the time. But anyway, I'll have those in my lesson plans set up. So that's a future video. Anyway, everyone have a great Memorial weekend, and thank you, veterans.